Ding. Hello, I'm Bill Graham, the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global EClub, and I declare this meeting on 18 October 2022 to be in session. Okay, the first thing I would like to do is I just was mentioning here the fact that although we've pretty much got the whole globe covered, there's not much, the only one here, we just need some of the representatives we've got from Latin America to be on the line with us, and we would have pretty much the whole globe covered. But one of the things that has been brought to my attention, a number of members have pointed out that the weekdays at noon is a very difficult time for them to join the meetings. And so I will be sending out a survey looking here for alternative times. It's been suggested, could we do it on a weekend day, that would make it easier for them. And also the time that maybe we could make it then in the morning in North American time, which would make it a little bit easier for those of you who are currently joining us in the late evening where you're located. And what do you say, Mac? What time did you say it currently is where you are?
1 o'clock a.m.
1 o'clock in the morning. So yes. We see, on the one hand, we see the dedication, but we have a number of members from the Philippines, and we have some people that have been joining us from Indonesia, where let's face it, the timing is not the best. We really want to make that hole if we can. If we're going to have a hole, it should be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So I feel bad for the people from maybe Alaska and Hawaii and maybe the Tahiti and maybe New Zealand, but we want to try to see how can we maximize the number of people that are able to join us. Regardless, we'll record it just like we've been doing with the other recent sessions here, and so that hopefully the other members can watch us. And we've got to come up with a better way so those who cannot attend the meeting, who are watching afterwards, we can get their input, we can get their comments in as they're watching the video, because it's really about having more people actually participating in developing our plans and strategies for moving forward. Okay. For today, we have a couple of new members. I see one is on the line, and I think the other one is going to be joining us in a moment. But I would like to start here by welcoming our newest member, Chetna, who has just joined us. And Chetna, if you could introduce us, give us a little bit of your background, what you currently do, what you are, your passions, what you're passionate about, and what are your hopes with regards to this club as to, how we can live up to our Dare to Be Great name. Please, Chetna.
Thank you, Bill, and namaste, everybody. My name is Chetna. And I'm logging in from a place called Mumbai in India. And as I say, I'm in Hindi we say, "Mujhe bahut khushi ho rahi hai." I'm feeling very happy to be here, and in fact delighted, as they say, step up. Yes. So I work in an organization called Rangbhumi, the name as you read, and Rangbhumi in English translates to the land of colors. Bhumi is earth, so earth, Mother Earth, and colors. So this is an applied theater organization, and we work with children and youth in schools, outside of schools, and NGOs across all spectrums of social, economic backgrounds. We work with teachers and educators on through applied theater practices of Theatre of the Oppressed. There are many playback theater. We have Inger Mette who's aligned us and supported, and I must say handheld and took care of us through the World Climate School project, which we were working with her along with Hans and Rob from Norway, Brazil, with a school in Rajasthan. We are the arts and culture partners. And through theater, our applied theater, our endeavor is to get the the voices of youth amplified, their systemic learning oppression that they feel, to bring them out, to bridge the gap between, there are a lot of, in India, there's something called as the RTE Act, the Right to Education Act, but this has not been implemented for years. The schools do have children who come from very economically disadvantaged background. However, they're not given their due space. And so our endeavor is to also give them post-school hours support, to give them in-school hours support through methods of arts, theater, conversations, and circle sharing. So this has been our work for 11 years. I have been born and raised in the hills. So Mumbai is a little claustrophobic. But in India, we say two things, like one is your Janmabhoomi, where you're born, the land of birth, and the other is Karma Bhoomi, the land where you work, the land of karma. So this is, I say, is my land of karma. And we celebrate, like birthdays, we say the karma day. We are like the day of the karmas. What you're doing is celebrated every day. It's not one day. So I love the space, the energy, and I must now congratulate Bill that he is such a passionate, energetic person, and it kind of has flowed his energy. I'm sure Inga Mehta would say yes to that, I got flowed by the way he's holding this dare to be great in his being. He's not doing, he's a being who's carrying it. And we have Alexander, we met before. So for me, I think the Readathon is something which I'm very, very curious about, to kind of move ahead with this, mobilize, I must say. Especially when we look at children, as I said, from the RTE background. We also work with a lot of children in the interiors of Maharashtra, the rural villages, and you must see them. They dress up only for a theater class. Every Saturday, they borrow, steal devices of their parents, siblings, just to be in a session, to just laugh and just play games. This is interiors of India, because they want to do this. There's thirst. And with this, we are also we are starting a project in the hills of India, in the interiors of India. And this, I think, has come at the right time, Bill and Alexander, everybody, that we want to mobilize this readathon to every child, and reach to more people. We have a team of people here. We are ready, and we want to do this. And the other one is, Bill, I must get your attention, everybody's attention, to what we spoke about, the SDGs, and creating it through theater pieces, mobilizing children to create their own co-owned interest in creating this through schools, post-school hour schools, which we have in India, a lot of state schools that we work with, and then get together on a district level, a local level, then national level, and then push them. Yes, okay, international level. So these are two things which I think I'm dare to be great. I'm already there with you all. Yes, so with this, I finish. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Chetna, and welcome. You are a very welcome addition. Your enthusiasm here, I've only known you for a few weeks now, and but you have great enthusiasm here. And this idea that we have to get the young people. Gail's not on the call, very unusual. She's usually always with us. But one of the things here, she gets very upset when I'm saying here that we've got to get the younger generation to realize that it's their future that we're talking about. Yes, do we need to be intergenerational? Yes. My generation here, we've already done so much damage in the world. We can't just abdicate and just say, okay, hey, it's your turn now, and good luck, because we have to contribute to rectifying some of the mess that we've made. It really is important to get young people to realize, yes, this is their future, and if they do not take any agency or ownership of that future, then they're going to have to live with whatever we leave behind. And that is not a very good prospect. And we have to make them aware of that. And we have to make their parents aware that, hey, it's your children we're talking about here. And, if you don't have a guilty conscience yet, you should have one, given what we're doing. So this idea of, yes, the awareness, we have to get the awareness out. We see movements like Fridays for Future here. I think what Greta is doing is fantastic. We've seen they've mobilized millions, but unfortunately here, we don't see that all that enthusiasm in the streets converting. I've been talking to a lot of young people, and they say, I asked them, what do you think about all that with that Greta and Fridays for Future? Their comment is, we just don't talk about that stuff. So, you know, when we look, the idea that they were able to mobilize, what was it, 2 to 3 million young people for that big movement they did a couple of years ago, that 2 to 3 million people spending a morning or an afternoon is nothing. It is literally nothing. So what we are really all about here is we're really about, if I can phrase it this way, right at this moment of time, quantity is more important than quality. We have got to break the inertia and get the masses to be doing anything, just something. Because once we can get some movement, that creates the opportunity for us to now try to direct that movement a little bit and guide it into particular paths. But if we are focused on only saying, let's get some 0.000% of the population to be super engaged, we still have the issue, how do we get from that tiny percentage of the population to the masses? Because it's the masses, whether we're talking about them using plastic for everything, or we're talking about them eating too much meat and causing that. And I bring that one up because I just got another email today from our new Rotary Environmental Sustainability Action Group. And they are really trying to highlight the impact that this meat consumption, which keeps growing, the impact that is having on our climate. So at any rate, we are still focused here on how do we get to the masses. I have to just pause for a second before I continue. We were going to have 2 introductions of new members today, and the other one is Rebecca from Zimbabwe. And I saw here she managed to log in for about 2 seconds. So I'm assuming she's got some connectivity issues there. But we will, if she connects in, manages to connect in, we will have her give her introduction. Otherwise, we will see that in the next meeting. So going back to the Readathon here, which is our current focus. Keep in mind, that's only one of about a dozen initiatives that we've talked and we've started and said, okay, how do we get going? Because we're not sure which of these is going to be successful first. COVID is something that has a very, very major impact when we're talking about something like the Readathon, because I'm sure it's the same in rural India as it is in rural Africa. That a lot of schools, when the schools are not in session, there is no virtual alternative. And so to be able to have those young people in those countries participate, or in those parts of the world, is not given. And that's a significant share of the younger school population of the world. And especially if we're talking about promoting reading, that is a significant share of the part of the world where young people have more difficulty in mastering reading. And I think I've mentioned this in the past. UNESCO has, in the most recent report that I've seen, mentioned there's something like 700 million children of primary and lower secondary school age that have not achieved proficiency in basic reading and numeracy skills. So we know where the target is. Okay, so our goal, what makes us different than most places, especially most Rotary clubs, what we call terra clubs, earth-based clubs, are based on a local community. And it's the business people and the professionals in that community to say, we want to give back to our community. For the most part, that's thinking, I want to give back to my town. There is always in most Rotary clubs a dual component. There's the component that's looking for projects that we can do relative to our town. And there's the idea of what can we do here internationally. But even in the international, the typical modus is that we have some club somewhere who wants to do a local project that might be beyond their individual means, that they then look for Rotary clubs in other parts of the world, perhaps wealthier parts of the world, to join with them in that project. And these are then called global projects. And for that, they can qualify for funds from the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation is one of the largest foundations in the world, rated among the top 5 best managed foundations. I think our current asset balance is over $1 billion. So we can typically do a lot. We have had a significant reduction due to COVID here recently, because we spent quite a bit here on things like masks and stuff like that for various parts of the world. So our club differs here in that we're not so much looking here. I feel personally very confident that I can go into almost any school in any community in the world, and I could help that school become successful at a world-class level. The problem is, what do we do about the other millions of schools around the world? So that is a question. We have here, there's a really good example. We have a young interactor. For those of you new to the club or to Rotary, Interact is that part of the Rotary that focuses primarily on secondary schools, students from age 11 or 12 up to age 19. And then in the past, we've had Rotaract that goes then typically university and beginning professionals between the ages of 19 and 30. That has been relaxed in the last 3 years now, that a lot of those young people are members of both. They're members of Rotaract and of Rotary. And Miriam is a perfect example of that. I don't know if she's still the president of the Rotaract Club, one of the Rotaract clubs in Lebanon, but also a member of Rotary through our club. So at any rate here, Rebecca just informed me she is still trying to connect here. So at any rate, so our focus is, I mentioned this, we had this girl from Interact here in New Jersey in our district, who, when she graduated from high school, she took what she called a gap year. That's taking a year off between high school and when you start university, so that she could go around the world to help out. So she went to Fiji, where she helped building seawalls there to protect against the rising waters. She went to India and she worked in some rural communities there. And she ended up in Nepal. And in Nepal, she saw some children, especially this one young girl she saw, that were breaking stones in a river, sitting in a river. They were breaking stones to sell the gravel that comes out of that, so just to get some money to eat. And she ended up adopting that girl, and she ended up then going and finding other children like this, and it just really bothered her, and she adopted more and more. Ended up going and contacting her parents and say, please send all the money I saved for the university and send that to me in Nepal. And she bought a house, and she ended up adopting 50 children. And she ended up going and really helping the schools evolve where she was there. And the result of that was that she was actually named CNN. CNN's one of our major TV networks in the United States. She was named CNN Hero of the Year, I think in 2015. And I think that's really great. What a perfect example, a model for so many people to follow. The only problem is that while she dramatically changed the lives of those 50 children, the number of children being born every year into that same poverty situation in Nepal remains unchanged. And this is the thing that I think our club is, because I look at that, and this girl, she actually made a major impact to a symptom, the symptom of these children here ending up with no future and a very questionable opportunity to literally survive. But what we're trying to do is say, we need to look at something like Nepal and say, how do we change things so not so many children are born into that poverty situation year after year? Because otherwise, when we look 10 years into the future, 20 years into the future, nothing will have changed. There will be the same number of children being born into poverty. And in fact, if we take the US as any example, the percentage of children being born into poverty is increasing year to year. And we now have the point in the United States that 50%. Hello, Shreya. Glad you could join us. Could you mute your phone, please?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. So at any rate, Shreya is joining us on her lunch break in school. This is part of what I was talking about, that difficulty in the midday meetings. And I see we have Henry joining us from Kampala, Asan from Pakistan as well, Juliet from Kenya. So welcome to all of you. And as I said, Rebecca is still trying. So at any rate, our goal is, if we want to make a change, we have to look at the underlying problems and say, how do we address the underlying problems? And whether we're looking at the climate change, where I said we have to change behaviors, not the behaviors of the 5% who are passionate about the issue and really concerned and care. We have to figure out how do we change the mindset of the other 95%, because if they don't change their behaviors, whatever we clean up on plastic on the beaches and the oceans today is just going to be replaced by the next group of people tossing their trash around and not caring about the issues. So we're focused on the masses. And if we're going to be focused on the masses, we have to be in the communications business. We have to become the main influencers of the world. We see here in social media today, we've got this phenomenon called influencers, and most of them are concerned about how you put makeup on or things like that. But in our case here, we want to really become the influencers of the influencers. And there I'm talking about people like the leaders of the Gates Foundations, of the major corporate leaders in the world, the leaders in the UN, the national leaders of governments. These people are influencers in their communities and where they're at. And we want to become the influencers of the influencers. And to do that, we've got to be primarily effective communicators. And so that's our focus. Now, the Readathon here is a vehicle that is primarily intended to establish a foothold in the minds of a very significant share of the young people of the world. And through those young people, their families. And through those young people and their families, their whole communities. And so it's, you know, when we look and we say, how can we reach the 7.9, I think was the last number I heard, 7.9 billion people in the world and get them to change? The media doesn't work the way the media used to be. Used to be you could just focus on a couple of major newspapers and you got everybody's attention. It's all fragmented today everywhere. One of the few things that we know is, where are young people? How do we get with young people? And we can, through the schools, we can reach a lot of people, and through them reach their parents and others. And they're the generation anyway that in the end of the day is going to live with the results and should have the biggest vested interest, if we can convince them that they can make a difference. And that if we can convince them that there are things happening that if nobody does anything, they're going to pay the bill for. Okay, I talked enough about all of those things. We know we want to reach out, we want to mobilize. We have to get the mass media of the world. We have to do something that's so dramatic that the mass media of the world is going to be talking about it. And through their talking about it, we have the communities, because we have to present it through the mass media in such a way that the people on the streets in the communities are saying, wow, that affects me, that they see some personal link to that. So one of the things we've said for the last couple of years now is that one of the best ways we can do that is if we can get the Secretary General of the United Nations to be able to make an appeal that to the primary and lower secondary schools to get involved in something like this readathon, that is one of the ways that we can get the media to be talking about it. And if we can get a couple of major corporations or philanthropists to go out there and say, I'm going to support this with a pledge, so that every hour a student reads during this month of X, there will be a small donation made in their name, so that young people are talking about here, that they can have an influence over some amount of money that for many of the children in the world is an amount of money they could never even imagine that they would be able to have any interaction with. Okay, so we've been looking for the opportunity. When can we kick this off? And in 2019, we thought we had it, because the planning for UN 75, the Secretary General gave a fantastic speech that I attended with a number of young people about the need to mobilize the masses of the world, and how the 75th anniversary of the United Nations would be dedicated to mobilizing the masses of the world population. And so we had that dedication, and he had, through his influence, a lot of national leaders, a lot of other people saying, yes, 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 we're gonna get everybody talking about the problems and the need for action and so forth. And along came COVID, and everything fell apart. And we were just in the process of reaching to the Secretary General at that point to get him to agree to make this appeal. And some of you may have seen the Deputy Secretary General Amin Mohammed wearing our Dare to Be Great wristbands, or the President of the General Assembly in the UN. He was also in one of his speeches wearing our wristbands there. But because of COVID here, nobody had any bandwidth to talk about education, especially if we're thinking here a year ago, March and April, the whole world was just really, what are we going to do about this pandemic situation? But now we see a new opportunity. That new opportunity here is the world. There's a lot of talk in the world in general, but especially in the UN, about this need to build back better and to compensate for all the damages wrought by COVID, especially in the field of education. So we have this opportunity now to get these people of influence, these maximum people of influence, to go out there and challenge the world. Hey, let's build back better. Here is a way to start. And so we've been trying to think, when is the best time? We know we can't go out there if we've got a third or a half of the world's children not in school, and no way for them to reach them and get them involved. But it looks like we're seeing here, at least in significant parts of the world, that COVID is getting somewhat under control now that we've got parts of the world vaccinated, although a lot of the Southern Hemisphere is not. I think we're between 2% and 3% only in Africa, for example, right now. But with the new pill, that even if you do get COVID, that can dramatically reduce the impact and the cost, I believe we're going to see a lot more in-person learning. And so I think we can now start to plan, let's kick this off, because the perfect time to kick it off is just just as the schools are getting back to full in-person learning, so that we can tie this to the overcoming the impact of COVID. And so we're looking here, we've been trying to figure out a good date when to do this. And we sort of homed in now on the idea of the International Day of Education in January. If we could get the Secretary General to go and make the announcement during the International Day of Education on the 24th of January, that could be a timing that he could announce that April will be the International Read for a Better World Month. And so we've been trying to think here. One of my experiences, if you're talking to politicians or you're talking to a lot of high-level people, the more you can do for them to picture themselves doing whatever you're asking for, the easier it is to get them to agree. So we've come up with a draft speech that we would like to see the Secretary General give. And Miriam was gracious enough to say, okay, let's go and we'll make this speech look like, okay, he's talking, but here's the reporter interpreting what he's saying. And we managed to get most of it done. We have a part that's not quite there, but I stepped in. I've got a recording part on that, but don't be concerned. It's not going to be me speaking any of that stuff. But so I just ran out of time to be able to put it all together. So I'd like to go ahead and show you that recording that we made, and then we can talk about that a little bit here. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. First of all, before I start that, any comments, any questions, anything regarding our basic strategy of figuring out how do we get the mass media of the world talking about something in such a way that local people say that affects me and therefore are likely to listen. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Maybe I can share briefly our future plans. So I'm Mako Kubo, Executive Director for Music for SDGs, and I have been working on the promotion of SDGs through music. So actually, I'm in Japan after visiting Switzerland. So we actually today is the last day for quarantine. So tomorrow I will be able to go out of the hotel to meet people. And we have a planned meeting with AVEX. AVEX is one of the music company who is producing CD and DVD. And we have a meeting with the someone who is in charge of United Nations and SDGs matters at AVEX, together with Miyako. The Miyako joined through video last time. So myself and Miyako will visit AVEX, and we will talk about potential collaboration on education for children. And also Aya Mashita is our assistant director, is also a music brain for me. And she's very excited to be part of this program to actually have a strategic meeting. So if you can share any of the documents, including your bio, Bill, and also Readathon kind of ideas that I can share with Apex person, that'll be very appreciated. That person is actually the former civil servant at the Ministry of Education. She was advisor to the permanent deputy, the minister at the education, Ministry of Education. It's a kind the head, the top person as a civil servant in the Ministry of Education. So we have a very good network with the Japanese government on education. Also, I'm serving as the board of advisor for Society and Diplomatic Review. It's a UN recognized journal headed by Gloria Starkins. And we are also talking with her about the picture book development in Africa to educate children. So if you think that it can be joined with your Readathon project, that can be a possibility. And then also I have been working with a musical actress, and we travel around the world, like to Vienna and Bali, and educating on the SDGs through musical form. Actually, the mother of this actress happened to be the charismatic person in the Montessori. So if you search with the word Montessori in Japanese, you see probably the 5 out of top 10 about her. So we have a very good relationship with the Montessori industry in Japan. So, and if you're, I heard that you talk about Montessori in this project. So this is another potential collaboration. I'm a kind of connector. So maybe we can combine these opportunities into big one project. Thank you.
I just want to point out, because Mac pointed up a couple of things. I'm going to talk briefly about Miyako and Mika, the two sisters that were at the meeting last week, who presented a proposal for getting young people in the world to make a video that would also be an appeal to people of influence like the Secretary General, for them to act to support these young people that want to read for a better world. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Mac, don't let me forget to talk about that here when we're done with that piece.
And that AVEX person, I forgot to mention that this AVEX person was in charge of Pikotaro. And Pikotaro had the performance at the United Nations thanks to her contribution. Pikotaro is a comedian in Japan, singing a very simple song like pen, apple pen, something like that, PPAP. So this is a relatively known around the children around the world.
Okay, great, thank you. And to the Montessori piece, because I know a number of you have connections with the Montessori. There's another project we don't spend as much time talking about right now, but it's something we really want to bring up, especially in the United States, called Closing the Education Gap. And that project here, on the one hand, has the goal to close the education gap between developing and developed countries and between communities within countries, because we have a lot of countries, especially in parts of Africa and other parts of the world, where if you're in certain cities or if you're in a certain social class, you have access to world-class schools, whereas the bulk of the populations there might not. So I'd like to, Inge wants to add a comment here at this point. So please, Inge.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mark Makoto. I like to continue by saying my experience with the learning organization, also education beyond. It's broader than education is learning, lifelong learning, community-based learning, but also this thing with Japan. The Build Back Better was established after Hiroshima, when the Japanese enterprises started to build back better as a strategy. So this thing about the educational project, SDG number 4, a global culture for peace, is profound. And also this, the Toyota methodology of the learning organization is total quality management. So when you speak, Makoto, I get this vision. I'd like to see the biggest insurance company in the world from Japan joining their hands with all insurance company in the world, together with the Rotary initiative that we are talking about. And also from the World Climate School, we're working with Chetna for some time now, and also with the biggest Montessori school in India with Sunita Gandhi. So it's all the pupil-centered educational approach, which means that we can even produce our own books. Children can produce our own books in our effort to do this together. And what I like to see, since Alex is here, I like to leverage this as soon as we can. And I like to see Hollywood and Bollywood joining hands on this effort in this educational project. And what is different right now is that we're going to have an interactive film industry for learning. That is handshake between Hollywood and Bollywood with the biggest actors and actresses, and the financial institution to do that. That's my hope. Thank you.
Inge, so many ideas there. You know, there's one here that Leah could probably talk about, that we've had this idea of creating a sort of a channel. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Doha Debates. That is relatively young people who bring together a lot of key people in the world to discuss somewhat controversial ideas, things like a universal basic income for everyone, and or dealing with the climate change, or whatever it might be, and bringing together key people like that. And the other thing here is about us organizing, for example, our own TEDx talks, so that we can bring out these topics, these subjects that need to be talked about. But more than that, we can give a platform. We can create a platform for young people to show what they can do, so that they can go out there and give the arguments, and the convincing arguments that, as we talked about, we want to be the influencers of the world, that we need to create a platform so that those young people can dare to be great and dare to show what great ideas they have. So I'd like this, though, to be, and I do like also what Inge mentioned about bringing the insurance companies in, and Alexander here, and what he's doing here, and trying to bring the corporations into things, that is only if we can get everybody pulling on the same rope in the same direction at the same time, are we going to be able to accomplish the kind of goals that we're seeking to accomplish. Alexander, please, you want to add something here?
Just to add to all of this exciting creative talk for a second, what I would recommend we prepare for my contacts in the Hollywood business, and both on the animation side and what we call documentary fiction, is kind of having a multi-pronged approach. And that's why I mentioned documentaries, because we can show how things are impacting communities by showing documentaries about how readathons improve the overall happiness and life conditions in a poor, impoverished community. We can create animation with very cute animal characters or human characters that, again, through edutainment, create the behavioral change that we're looking to achieve on a larger scale. And to address one thing that Max said with regards to how a Montessori network can be activated in Japan, we certainly can activate Montessori networks all around the world. Rudolf Steiner, you know, a little bit of the different approach to the traditional curriculums that are offered today, but to also create and address and pretty much curate the content that we want to see the children, and perhaps older people who are now starting to get more sensitive to these issues, content that is digestible, with steps that they can take every day, little steps, because every incremental step makes a huge difference when 7.8 billion people are doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So what we want is that kind of velocity and scale. And I think what Bill is touched upon is we must use all of our connections, all of our abilities, and no longer work in these silos where we are all competing for attention for our initiatives. That's why, I've been brought into this fold, both with Mac, Bill, Inger, Chetna, all of you. It's because we all have this open heart to collaborate. And that's the kind of thing that we must keep propagating throughout the world. I myself, every day, try to inspire people by just giving them a few little bits of information. It could be, very small, but it touches them in some kind of way to the soul, to the core, because we know that the stakes are very high, but we don't necessarily know what to do about it. So little incremental behavioral change through conversation, through sharing what it means to even know about COP26 or the UN SDGs. As SDG, let's just say evangelists and activists, we all have a role to play by just sharing that information with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people on the street every day. It's just a friendly reminder that we're all a part of this magical community called global citizenry. And we can do it, but I think we need to, as Bill just addressed, find the way to be the biggest communication center of this information. And so I will put my best efforts into evangelizing into the traditional media companies, what it is that we're doing. I will solicit them. I will challenge them. I will even make them feel like they should do something, because I will do a little something in my modest way and hopefully create a domino effect or a ripple effect, however you want to look at it. And to address, the way Mac is in the nerve center of the insurance world, I think we must create campaigns that are very easy to retain and to propagate, like ensuring the world that no one gets left behind. Very simple messaging, but very specific. And then from there, it can fraction off into different components, making sure people have access to education, making sure people have access to clean water, making sure they have access to food, healthcare. I always harp on these 5 pillars that I think are extremely important to guarantee people the chance to participate in life.
Yeah.
So I'll try to stay brief and not pontificate on this subject too much, but lean on me. Let's get our presentation tools ready. I will go and syndicate, and I am happy to keep enrolling all of my closest friends in my orbit. But I will make a point, even though it's not about self-aggrandizement at all for me, but I will want to make sure that I syndicate this more on Twitter. So please follow each other on Twitter, retweet what we are saying, because everything that we're doing, both from Music for SDGs, Rotary Club, Dare to Be Great, Music for Climate Justice, World Climate School, Heal Our World, all the things that we, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce Chetna's organization properly without butchering it, but all of these wonderful organizations, Rangbumi, I'll try it, Rangbumi. These are all wonderful things to have on the children's lips, singing joyfully, making sure that it's a joyful experience, and we should not be shamed into doing anything. We should be joyful in this beautiful transformation that we are going to witness and usher in this decade. I'm certain of it. So yeah. I will leave it at that, and please, feel free to pick my brain, or even if you have an idea that is always useful, to share those ideas and not be bashful about them, because that is the Dare to Be Great mantra. Do not hesitate to think big, and dare to think that it's possible.
Absolutely. And I think here, thank you so much, Alexander, because you brought up a couple of points. I'll just want to touch on each of those, and then I want to get to this video, because some of the folks here have had to go onto their classes or other work schedules here, and I want to be able to get enable as many people as possible. But you touched on a couple of things. One is, I'd like to say something about the insurance industry. If we take a look at the insurance industry right now, there are so many cases where the insurance industry spends a lot of resources to try to get people to behave in a way They are not going to have the accidents, or they are not going to have the damage from the storms or the accidents with their cars or the healthcare problems by going out and advising people for better health practices, or advising people how to better protect your home to avoid damage, or how to drive more safely. I just got finished here with my insurance company sent me a little thing to plug into my car that checked how often I braked aggressively or gave too much gas too quickly. And I got a reduction in my insurance by just showing them that, hey, so they're trying to encourage behavior. So I think here, this could be a great pitch from the insurance industry, that here, by protecting our planet, by education, by educating people, people who are educated are less likely to fall into a whole bunch of problems in life that raise costs for insurance companies. So they're almost like becoming the insurer of the world, if you would, by supporting the SDGs. The other thing I'd like to bring out, tying together here, because this Chetna touched on this a little bit here, is one of our projects is called the Future We Want School Competition. The idea of that school competition is, if we can go and be successful with the Readathon of gaining a foothold into every primary and lower secondary school in the world, then we have the opportunity here again through the UN, perhaps, to go and announce a challenge competition for every class to put together a 3 to 4 minute video. They might not know it's a video initially because maybe they're too poor to have anything to be able to make a video. But once they get to a stage, if they reach a certain stage, then we can arrange here, whether it's a local Rotary or Lions Club or somebody else, to go and help them record it. And then that recording can then now go forward. So it's an opportunity for us. One of the best ways to learn something is try to teach it to somebody else. So if we can go and get a whole bunch of young people to be convinced that through a video, they're trying to inform people of what they see the world could be, if we can go and achieve these SDGs, and especially if they're looking at their neighborhoods. So if we look here, and you know, Henry's on the line. By the way, if some of you don't know, Henry he's the 2019 Billion Axe Hero Award winner. 13 million candidates. There were 13 million candidates, and he was selected as the hero of the year award winner from the Nobel Peace Prize, the Association of Nobel Peace Prize winners, who issue that award. You know, this is just an example when we talk about people that are dedicated and doing so much. He's working with young adults there to try to help them learn to have a better life in Uganda. The idea here is, by young people, if we can go and give these young people a voice, show them that they can get their thoughts, that they can have thoughts in the first place, that they can look at their neighborhoods and see, oh, where are the shortcomings? And look, because they looked at the SDGs, and the SDGs say, oh, you should have this level of education, and you should have this level of opportunity, and you should have this level of climate protection, and so forth and so on, and avoidance of hunger, and all these things. And then they can go out and look at their neighborhood and say, have we achieved that? How close are we to achieving that? Which ones of the causes underlying the SDGs are impacting us the most? And just thinking about them, the awareness that they get, and then the opportunity for them, that we give them a platform for them to be able to say what they think about all of this, and being able to take these young people's voices then, and by having a hierarchical competition tournament, be able to go and get the best of those voices out there to be heard by all the adults as well. Anyway, so this is one other thing. I do want to jump over now, though, to our video, because otherwise I may be the only one looking at it and I've already seen it. So let me go back to sharing my screen and we can come back to talk about any of this, this afterwards. Okay. So is everyone seeing a picture of the Secretary General on their screens? Okay, so.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, let me begin then.
Dear fellow residents of planet Earth, the past 2 years have been among the most trying in recent history. A pandemic of historic proportions has disrupted almost every aspect of the lives of people in all parts of the world. Nowhere has the disruption been greater than with regards to education. Hundreds of millions of children and youth around the world have experienced reduced or even no access to schools during this time. Now is the time for everyone around the world to show our determination to overcome the education time lost to COVID. I therefore appeal to all primary and lower secondary schools around the world, both public and private, to demonstrate their resolve to overcome the negative impacts of COVID by participating in the largest ever global readathon called Read for a Better World. The goal is to have every primary and lower secondary school student in the world read a minimum of 20 hours during the month of April 2022. I also appeal to national leaders and especially ministers of education in every country of the world to support this initiative by encouraging all the primary and lower secondary schools in their country to participate in the Readathon and demonstrate to the world what great readers they are or are on the way to becoming. Imagine how many billions of hours of reading this initiative might result in if all the world's leaders work together to maximize participation in this readathon. For some students, 20 hours of reading practice could significantly improve their reading skills. I also appeal to the world's philanthropists, to the world's business and civic leaders, to the world's professional associations, especially those related to education, to all the NGO and civil service organizations, to celebrities and all people of influence who agree that we have a great opportunity to re-energize learning around the world in the wake of COVID, to join us in promoting and incentivizing reading during the Readathon month. The idea for using a global readathon to dramatically change the lives of millions did not originate in the halls of the UN or other global or corporate entity. It came from a group of 16-year-olds, and they were building on an idea from a group of 9 and 10-year-olds who had been presented examples of amazing things that some young people their age had done and then challenged to come up with and implement some amazing ideas of their own. A few days after they were challenged, a group of these students went to the headmaster of their school and said they wanted to do something about their schoolmates who, for one reason or another, were poor readers. They added that they had heard that there were many children around the world who can't even go to school because they have no food and have to spend their days begging or foraging for food just to live for another day, or because they had to work to help their families survive. The students said they also wanted to do something to enable some of these poor children to be able to go to school and also have a chance to learn to read. Their idea was a readathon, where they would get people to pledge a small donation for every hour they read, whereby the money raised would be used to enable some of the world's poorest children to go to school by providing food for them there. They said such a campaign would reduce the number of children not in school due to hunger or poverty, while simultaneously providing an incentive for their schoolmates to read, thereby improving their reading proficiency. They then got 70 schoolmates to join their readathon, and in just 2 weeks, they raised enough money to get 250 of the world's poorest children off the streets and into schools and feed them for an entire year. In other words, each of the students participating in the readathon was able to dramatically change the lives of more than 3 of the world's poorest children. A short time later, a group of high school students heard of this achievement. Their reaction was, wow! If 70 students were able to so dramatically change the lives of 250 poor children, imagine. Now you might think they were about to say, we could do that too. But that's not what they said. They said, imagine if we could get 70 million children around the world to participate in such a readathon. That could dramatically reduce the number of children worldwide not in school due to hunger or poverty. perhaps even to zero by 2030 if the readathon was repeated yearly. They pointed out that 70 million students is a relatively small percentage of the world's student body. This shows that great ideas can come from anyone in the world, but it is also a challenge to those of us in leadership positions to pick up on such great ideas and see that they are carried out. The improvement in the COVID situation and the need to compensate for learning time lost due to COVID is an ideal opportunity for us to do just that. This is why I challenge all of us to work together to maximize the number of schools and students participating in the Readathon, and to incentivize students to maximize the number of hours they read by pledging small donations for every hour read by a class, by a school, or by all the students in a city or another jurisdiction during the Readathon. I mentioned the primary school children who came up with their idea of a readathon as a way to simultaneously improve the reading skills of participating students while raising money to reduce the number of children not in school due to poverty and hunger, and the secondary school students who came up with the idea of making this a global movement. What I didn't mention is that both of these groups were affiliated with Rotary International, a global organization of business and civic leaders in tens of thousands of locations around the world that has been engaged with the UN since our inception and has been a critical partner in major initiatives of global significance, such as the eradication of polio worldwide. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Chetna Mehrota, the president of Rotary International, to say a few words about how Rotary intends to support the Readathon initiative worldwide. Thank you, President Mehrota. Note that, beyond improving reading skills and reducing the number of children worldwide not in school due to hunger or poverty, we are doing something that could be of even greater value to the world. We are giving our young students around the world an opportunity to become global citizen heroes, because it's the hours they read that will lead to raising the funds that will so dramatically change the lives of tens of millions of the world's poorest children. If the participation in the Readathon is high, it's likely to include tens of millions of students who are themselves so poor that they never imagined that they would be able to help someone else, who would suddenly discover that they do have something of value. Namely, every hour they read during the Readathon is now worth something. But wait, there's more. A major cause of poverty that is causing so many children to not be in school today is the low education level of the parents. Should this initiative succeed in ensuring everyone in the next generation receives a better education, this would dramatically reduce the future number of children living in poverty in the first place. But we're not finished. We said we're giving our young students around the world an opportunity to become global citizen heroes. It's our desire to declare a day, soon after the end of the Readathon, to be International Honor the Readers Day. We encourage communities worldwide to hold a community-wide ceremony on that day to honor the students in their community that participated in the Readathon by officially declaring them to be UN Global Citizen Heroes in a way that would result in great pride for those students and their families, such that they will be receptive to participating in further opportunities to make a difference in the world in the future. At the same time, we will invite all these newly designated global citizen heroes to join Team Vision 2030, a global movement dedicated to the achievement of the world that could be, if all the SDGs were accomplished in all parts of the world for all people. This would be the start of a series of global initiatives aimed at getting the masses of young people engaged in discussions regarding the SDGs and the problems they seek to address in time to avoid some of the worst consequences the world might otherwise face. This is part of the Education for Sustainable Development, ESD initiative, which UNESCO and national education representatives from all countries around the world are working on. As an added incentive, we will be inviting student and teacher representatives of the schools with the highest average number of hours read per student from each part of the world to come to a UN headquarters on International Honor the Readers Day, to be present as we honor all the students worldwide who participated in this first Read for a Better World Readathon. UNESCO, as the UN agency tasked with the mission of promoting education worldwide, with support of other UN agencies and departments, will lead our global efforts with regards to the Readathon. Ms. Audrey Azoulay, the Director General of UNESCO, will provide further details regarding the readathon shortly. Finally, I appeal to the members of the media of all kinds to actively support the Readathon initiative. You have the power to play a key role in keeping the public informed and engaged in supporting the Readathon at the global, national, and local levels. Getting every child on the planet in school with the nutrition to concentrate and learn, and getting all young students around the world working to improve their reading skills is a very ambitious initiative. But let's remember what Michelangelo said. The problem for most people is not that they set goals too high and fail, but that they set goals too low and succeed. Should we fail, let it not be because we didn't aim high enough. Thank you.
Okay, so what do you think?
It's a very compelling speech, Bill. I mean, I think it's a very well articulated speech. It'll certainly grab people's attention. My only comment would be, how quickly can we get the Secretary General to read that letter?
Yeah, that's always been our big question. The Secretary General, as I've mentioned, I've been at meetings where he's present. The general practice at the UN is the Secretary General comes in, the meeting starts, then he comes in and he does his part, and then before the meeting ends, he and his handlers get him out of the room. So that because otherwise, if you've been to many UN events, you see most of the time those from the DS they stick around and they talk to the folks that are present there. But I've never seen that with the Secretary General. I've been with the President of the General Assembly, with so many of the others. They're not so well shielded, if you would, and they welcome actually the opportunity for discussions. But here's the thing: this is why when we talk about here with Amika and Mikado coming up with this idea that we have this video of all the children here saying, "Hey, we want to read for a better world. Please help us." And we could actually maybe make that, "Please help us, Mr. Secretary General." And if we could then publicize a video like that. We have here through a group of the NGO, there's I think I'm not sure the number of major groups at the UN. There's the major group for youth, the major group for NGOs, the major group for everything. And one of the major groups, as part of the major group for NGOs, has offered here to take our message and broadcast that out to all of literally every UN ambassador, as well as all the ambassadors to UNESCO. Plus, we have a number of direct links to people at UNESCO and others there that we can engage. And there's a very special group. There's a group of 25 countries that at the UN, where the ambassadors to the UN have created this group called the Friends of Education and Lifelong Learning, who are a driving force behind this concept of education for sustainable development, ESD, in getting every country, the ministries of education, every country in the world, to agree, work to make this ESD part of the curriculum in their country's school system. It turns out that the co-chairs, there's 5 co-chairs of that group of 25 countries, and it includes Norway and Japan. So we definitely, with Inger and Mac here, we have a focal point there to come back. So our plan our plan is to try to get as many people of influence as possible to encourage, to say, "Hey, Mr. Secretary General, have you seen this on YouTube here? What do you think?" And we've put together a paper Just before COVID, it was aimed at UN 75. There's a paper, and I've published it in the different groups there. It's sort of like a brochure thing. It was Opportunity 2020, because that was the year of the 75th anniversary. We now need to update that to make it Opportunity 2022. And we have a 2-page front and back version. We've got a 4-page version, and we got an 8-page version of that. That not only it says what we can do and how we can do the readathon, but also shows how the readathon is the gateway to all the further things that accomplish what the Secretary General has said he wants to accomplish. So our approach to the Secretary General is, hey, Mr. Secretary General, don't do what we're thinking we want you to do, but let us help you accomplish what you've said you want to do in terms of the world. Yes, Ingrid.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for presenting the imaginative speech. The word imagine is important here. And I think that Read for a Better World, please help us. I like to challenge Chetna to see if we can produce this kind of interactive video production that is ending up in this video, but it's also ending up in producing like a art book made of drawing of the children. So this children, empowering children, this circle of empowerment, starting of 2022 till 2030, it's 8 years. So that circles annual year. I'm looking at the dates. You said 24th January, the World Education Day is 24th.
Yes.
The United Nations Day is 24th October. And then you said April, the month of April is the Readathon month. And then the key dates is 5th June, like the World Environmental Day and celebration coming up in this year 2022 in Stockholm and in Kenya. So it means that we're having this the marriage or the joint effort, united effort between Global South, Global North, Global everywhere into an Read for a Better World campaign, a readathon. So I'm saying that there is no time to lose. If we can challenge the UN letter, the imaginative speech to be presented 24th October as an idea, and then we have in Glasgow 4, 5, 6, the 11th we should be signing off all the ministries. And as you rightly said, if Japan and Norway has a say in the ESD, as you said, the Educational Sustainable Development Initiative, I think the insurance companies that Makoto is representing, together with the oldest enterprises in Norway, which is insurance, banking, and firework people, and farmers, they are cooperatives, which is part of the public for good structure that we have in the Nordic countries, as the same as Japan has. Okay, so I'm pushing all I can, Bill. Do it now, don't wait.
Yes, and Inge, I'd like to follow up because a couple of things you said. One is the idea with Chetna here on mobilizing young people. We said we'd give an update here on Mika and Mikado's proposal there to create this song, this video about we want to read for a better world. The young people singing, we want to read. One of the things, the first things we need to do, and we're looking at a timetable of only a couple of weeks, we need to recruit young people from around the world to participate in that. And the thought is that we would reach out to teachers of music, for example, in schools. These are primary school children age to participate. And they're suggesting they would put together sort of a karaoke thing there so that we could recruit a lot of singers. So through Inger, your network there with climate schools for climate schools, for the Montessoris, for wherever we can get it through our, we have a thing called Early Act in Rotary, where those are children that are from age I think 6 to 12 or something like that. So maybe the earlier ones in that could participate, and we can reach out and try to get as many, because if they can have that video, put that video together with hundreds of singers from all parts of the world, each singing and holding up a sign that has in English, but also in their local language, some statement about wanting to read, wanting to make a better world, and so forth. We have to do it quickly. The timetable that they put together here literally calls to have that video done before the end of the year. And that includes the time to recruit the candidates, for them to practice, for them to develop the song, for them to recruit the candidates, have them practice, have them develop their local videos, have those submitted, and then be able to go and edit all that together into a final product. But that's one of the things that, how do we get the attention of major powers, people of influence in the world, is a video where literally we have young people from almost every country on the planet saying, please help us. We want to read for a better world. Please help us. So Mac.
Thank you. So this is Mac. So I have 10% left for battery. So just in case. So let me share very important information from the insurance perspective. You mentioned insurance over and over again. So actually there are a lot of things that are going on the insurance sector, and this is a momentum. So I'm going back to Switzerland again next month to attend the General Assembly for Geneva Association, which is represented by CEO and chairman of all the global insurance sector. And I'm a part of associates community. I'm a staffer to draft the overall global strategy of the insurance industry as a whole. So that's why I was in Switzerland just before Japan, and we were talking about. And this Geneva Association has a one sentence which categorizes the organization, which is called Insurance for a Better World. It happened to be very similar to so Insurance for a Better World actually summarize the objective of this whole organization represented by insurance company. And we do have a general assembly next month. And that's gonna be chaired by Swiss Re from the next one. And I'm a kind of vocal the associates from the Asian region, and I have a separate strategic meeting 1 or 2 days before the General Assembly, so that we can sit together to discuss how the Asia Pacific and Geneva Association can collaborate on the sustainable finance. And also today we had the G20 Insurance Summit, Insurance Forum, which was focused on ESG. Also, the United Nations Principle for Responsible Investment had a digital conference. The lead sponsor was Nissay Asset Management, subsidiary of my company. So for that reason, I have to listen to both conference today from 4:30 to 1 o'clock. So this is the right timing to have this meeting at this time. So this is very important momentum. If the Alexander is willing to have a meeting in Switzerland, you're welcome to join us. And I'll be in the Switzerland from 8 to 15 of November in Switzerland with the European Standard Time. And also there are a lot of discussion. The Nippon Life has been engaged in education for children on the forest or the SDGs matters already for decades. So, and then we are probably, if we are involved in the education of children, SDGs is a kind of export from Japan to the rest of the world. So this we have been doing for years. The musical, the group, Shiata Siki was actually founded by Nippon Life decades ago, and this is the best musical group in the country. And also in terms of Montessori, actually our target is not children. So this Montessori group is actually targeting the mothers and fathers who have children of 0 to 5 years. And then she appears on TV, and her books is always bestseller under the Amazon Japan. Is already translated to many different languages, including Chinese, Koreans. I don't know the list of all the languages that was translated, but the target is the parents. So it's a part of the life learning experience. And whenever the parents encounter any problems about raising young children, they just consult a book to know how they are dealing with those children under the Montessori situation. So if you have a Readathon, the cooperation from the parents are very important. And Miyako is directly dealing with the children. So it's a very great combination of Miyako dealing with children, and the Ito-san, the Mika and Seika Ito is dealing with parents who have children. So this is the kind of the blueprint that I'm thinking about in this collaboration. Yes,
This is really great, Mac. One of the things we're hearing, and this is so important, you're hearing now our different members adding their ideas into the mix here on how do we do this. If we now can set up and say, look, our goal right now is to get the Secretary General, maybe put together the idea of a press conference with the Secretary General saying some things, with the Director General of UNESCO making a statement, and the President of Rotary making a statement there that give us a total package, and perhaps being able to get somebody from the Gates Foundation or from somebody representing a major group of philanthropists saying, hey, we are going to help drive this process, because I can't say for sure, but I truly believe that the Secretary General making such an appeal like that is going to get the news attention. But if somebody like the Gates Foundation were to come out and say, you know what, for every child in Nepal or in Malawi who reads an hour during that, for every hour those children read, we will donate some amount, $1, I'll say $1, but $1 here, if you know, that could be get into the billions. But if we take a look here at Chris Anderson, the head of the TED Talks, he has put together a war chest that they assembled that includes the Gates Foundation and a handful of other foundations, $634 million. $634 million. So $1 billion for something like a readathon, where it's only a pledge of $1 billion, and you don't have to pay anything unless the kid's already delivered. And who has ever heard of the kids in the world uniting? When we talk about Fridays for Future, imagine here if they went out and said, okay, kids, you know what, instead of us skipping school on Friday, we're all going to go here and devote those hours to contributing to reading, because that's making the world a better place. So I think here if the idea is to take what we started here, what you saw in that video, we want to continue over the next week to 2 weeks and flesh that out with the drafts of all the other speakers that we're looking at, so that we can sort of put together the idea of a press conference and say, imagine this. And using the word imagine, which I think it was Inger that just highlighted, Alexander, you have Paul Pullman, who is involved with you on Heal Our World. His organization is called Imagine. So
yes, I was going to say that. Yeah.
What a perfect opportunity. If we could get somebody like him, the former head of Unilever, to go and be able to go and have something like, imagine this video, imagine this press conference taking place like this, and then be able to go out here and try to get here a handful of the top anchors or whatever from the media industry from several countries, who are basically saying, you know what, I'm going to be an insider. I'm going to make it part of my role to highlight and push this idea out to the public. Let's get the media to become not just the passive observer, but get them to agree to be one of the co-sponsors, co-organizers, what I like to say, the co-conspirators, to be one of the co-conspirators behind this idea of mobilizing all the children of the world. And now, Inge, you've had your hand up for a while, please.
Yes, excellent. The idea here, as I understand it, is that the children are the philanthropists. They will be fundraising their own thing, and that Paul Pullman will match this with his Imagine Fund. So the children are empowering themselves as philanthropists by saying that for every page or every hour we united learn in our school, we fundraise ourselves.
Well,
And
they
that is
become the catalyst for the fundraising,
the
which makes
catalyst
them
for
the
the
hero.
fundraising. But if the, for example, the Royal Climate School with the Montessori community and the Library Alexandria as one of the ancient libraries of the world, together with other libraries, join us, then imagine this, what we can do. We can do, it's amazing idea.
Mhm. Yeah, and the International Federation of Library Associations is definitely somebody we should have on board as partners, as really founding partners of the movement, even though we're already moving. They it just makes so much sense for them, makes so much sense for UNESCO. It makes so much sense for the International Literacy Association, which was the International Readers Association, which is the association of teachers of reading from around the world. These folks would be the natural allies to get behind this.
But if Rotary, if we get that as a first step, so the united partnership with Rotary, who works global in their local communities, empower the fundraising unity with the children.
Be cautious to get Rotary to the clubs, and I think I've mentioned in the past. At the Toronto, we have a convention every year. It's in June, and in the Toronto convention here, that was in 2018. It was in Toronto, and I spoke there to many district governors and many club presidents from around the world, and everyone that I talked to said yes, we would be on board. In Hamburg the following year, 2019, I had the same opportunity, and there were just so many Rotary clubs and districts that said we're on board. But you have to be aware, Rotary International has rejected supporting any campaign of any unified campaign in the last 35 years, because that's when they started the polio campaign. And although polio has gone from being endemic in more than half the countries of the world, we've got it down that there's only 2 countries that have existence of live polio anymore. And I think the number of cases that we've had this year so far is less than 20 in the whole world. They're not willing to address any other campaign until Rotary has been eradicated for 2 years.
So Greta Thunberg movement, Fridays for Future, has 14 million kids not going to school on Fridays. So to challenge that Swedish initiative, say let's get all those 14 million kids who are the privileged one, who is actually in a position to say, no, I don't want to go to school. And there is like 100 millions of kids not in school. So we that kind of the richer kids can actually fundraise and be a philanthropic instead of buying toys.
Yes. And not only that here, it's when we are anticipating, we saw here when we did the pilot Readathon here in New Jersey, the average amount raised per participating student was around $50. Now, the way Readathons typically work, the way athons typically work in general, is the ones participating it, they go to their parents, to their neighbors and others and say, will you sponsor me so that for every hour I do whatever it is we're doing, that you will pledge a small donation. That's typical. What we found, however, in dealing with the primary schools, that you have a certain group of kids that are maybe shy or whatever, and they don't end up having any pledges. And when the campaign starts, you've got all these kids who have sponsors and you've got a bunch of kids that don't. It creates some really bad feelings among those kids that don't. So what we've done is we've organized the idea to try to get sponsors for the class, so that we sponsor based on a class. And it's not the kids who are putting up any money. That's the key thing here. We don't want to go out and ask the kids to put up money. We want to go out and ask the kids to read so that we can go and engage the broader community of all the adults and get the adults here supporting their kids in their communities. And that gives us much more reach than just the kids themselves. The kids are still the heroes. Why? Because the hours they read led to the raising of the money, which enabled the lives of the others to be changed. So we still have the kids as the heroes because they put in the hours reading. It gives us a double effect. We raised the money and we've improved the reading. And in future years, we can now start to narrow that down because if we have time, we can go and prepare to get materials out to schools so that we can guide them into what they read about. So we can make a topic so that they would maybe read about climate at a particular time, that they might read about water and sanitation another time, whatever. We don't want to do that initially because we want to cast the net as wide as possible. But the opportunities are really there. But I think the bottom line here for this round is this idea to say we've got a date that's right around the corner. When we really think about it, 24 January, we can't go to the Secretary General on the 20th of January and say, hey, would you give this speech here in 4 days? So we need to be able to reach out as quickly as possible. We need to create the groundswell of people of influence who are going to help get the message to the Secretary General, get the Secretary General to see this as supporting what he has said is top priority. Because right now, the support of the UN right now is so many countries are not paying their dues, not contributing to the UN, that you've got people in New York here who are employees of the UN who have to pay for their own business cards. They've already shut down almost all support for NGOs in the New York headquarters here, even to the point that the places where they enable visitors, NGOs to attend, they've gotten rid of almost all the shared printers there. I mean, and they've shut down all opportunities for third parties to organize meetings at the UN because the UN is closed evenings and weekends. And that goes back to before COVID. It's not COVID related. This is a money related situation. So if we can show him by saying, take a look at this. Imagine here, this could be your press conference. How would you feel about delivering a message like that? And if we've got here 3 or 4 people, heavyweight media people, be they the business executives of media outlets or whatever, and we have a couple of top corporate executives, and we've got some philanthropists saying here, this would be a great opportunity, and we'd be right there to support you. That's the kind of thing here that I think is going to get us the agreement. And the earlier we can get the agreement, Alex, tell me if I'm wrong, if you were able to go out and say, the Secretary General has already agreed to this, how easy would that be then to get the philanthropies and the business executives on board?
It's almost a guarantee, Bill. A lot of family offices and very, let's just say affluent philanthropists are looking for also guidance as to where to deploy their capital. And we must give them the right roadmap so that they can continue their pledge, so that we can actually reach our goals.
Yeah.
But it should not be a one-time pledge. It should be an ongoing pledge is what I'm trying to say.
We want to make this an annual event, both in the purpose of creating a hero thinking, but because we want to do all the add-on projects related to it. And the idea here is the money we would raise might be enough to get all those children not in school and fund them to be able to attend school for a year. But that just means next year we've got to go and fund them for the next year. And we need to do that until we do not have such a number of poor parents who therefore are not able to support their children in getting an education. So we put an end to the problem, if you would. One of the things here, Alex, you're muted, Alex.
Well, may I just suggest one thing, Bill? because we're talking about a financial instrument here in some respects. What I would like to create is a regenerative model, right?
Yeah.
Which speaks to sustainability, but speaks to the actual model having efficacy in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And this is a very, important aspect of how to raise enough money in our coffers, let's just say, and I say our coffers, the collective coffers, to make sure that we always have enough money to publish, books, to make sure that we can advertise, syndicate, all of those things. All of those things require money. So we need to make sure that that ongoing pledge is, guaranteed by the corporations, but also that the citizenry also have an opportunity to pledge and to donate. And that's why I have another organization that I work with that has partnered with Walmart, CVS, big companies like that, to basically round off a certain amount of money after their consumer, purchase.
Alex,
and it's a very important thing, and we're pretty sure that we can magnify that significantly with the right campaigns, because there's not enough good campaigns out there.
Just here, because because of time, we're going to be approaching 2 hours on this meeting, and I told Chetna, for example, here, hey, we're going to try to stick to an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes today. But idea, Alexander, and we have a number of other activities here that would be we're looking at that would get into the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars as well, including we have a plan for Rotary University to become the biggest free online university in the world by separating the idea of learning from the idea of getting certified or getting credentials. We have a thing called the Dare to Be Great Challenge competition, which we hope to be able to offer tens of millions of dollars in prizes for the group of young people being under 30 in this case, but it could go down into secondary schools that can come up with the most outrageously audacious solution ideas for major world problems. And we want to put that and get that syndicated on TV, similar to America's Got Talent or The Voice or those talent type shows. In this case, the talent is creative ideas for a better world. And we want to make that so popular that the general public will vote, and they can amplify their votes by pledging donations in support of the particular project they're voting for. So if they go out there and say, hey, I'll give $100 or I'll give $1,000 or whatever it is to project X, so the project that gets all the people that just vote, their vote's worth $1, let's say, and everybody else is whatever they pledged. But that's an idea for that. So there's many ideas that we are looking at here that can talk about raise money. One of the things we're trying to avoid is to have an organization that requires funding. So when you talk about here on advertising and things like this, we can accomplish a way of in-kind donations that we can sort of put the architecture together and direct, okay, we need this publicized and that publicized, but because we've got an arm of the movement that we've got that is focused on mass media, that they're coming up with ways, how do we get that out? I do also want to, Inga mentioned something here that I think is particularly pertinent also for Chetna, and about the idea of children being the fundraisers, being the ones raising the money. They are indirectly raising the money, in this case through their reading. If they were talking about the Dare to Be Great challenge, they're raising the money by having the creative ideas on solving problems, and they're raising the money to actually implement the solutions to the problems. But right now we have an immediate opportunity to engage the young people in the world to say, make this your project. There's a video I'm going to post was the original video of those 16 and 17-year-old kids who picked up on the idea of what those 6 to 10-year-old kids did and put out a video campaign calling on the youth of the world to make this their project. And at the time it was called Rotary Youth for a Better World. And then Rotary came down on me saying, oh, you can't use the word Rotary here like this. And, we're trying to keep the focus on polio and stuff like this. This is why we've got the plan to go out with a video and a survey to all 45,000 presidents of Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs around the world, explaining to them the concept of the campaign and saying, hey, will you join in? Because that's the way Rotary works. Rotary, I have a pledge from the CEO of Rotary that he will help us go out and reach all the presidents and so forth. People tell me I'm too gullible to believe that will always take place like that, but because they don't always follow through on those things, but we have the opportunity to try. By putting in here, you'll see when we show the sample, the draft presentation from our current president, who's from India, that he is, his words fit what we're trying to do to a T. They fit so beautifully to what we're trying to do. But we just have to get him to be able to picture himself making that video. But the children, if we can get the children going out and explain, get enough children, when we explain here what this readathon would be like and what it would what it would do. Those kinds of young people that Inger was referring to, those kinds of the children who are in the Fridays for Future who want to make a difference, where we can invite them and say, can you imagine here, I just, I hate to do this because time's going by, but I back a long time ago, I did a project. We mobilized over 100,000 kids. Literally from first idea to having these kids act was about 6 to 8 weeks. And what we decided to do is see, could we shut down a government of a major country for a day? And the country ended up being Germany. And so what happened is these 100,000 kids, I think it was in the end about 106,000 kids from all over the United States, they all wrote a physical snail mail letter to the Chancellor of Germany. We went down to the embassy in Washington, told them what we were doing and everything, and they just laughed at us and say, nobody will respond. And then 106,000 letters. And we made it so that we asked everybody to put the letter in the mail on a particular date, so they would all get there around the same time. And that's exactly what happened. And I had called some people that got me and put me in a limousine to the Chancellor's office, and we explained what we were going to do here. And then I had to head off to Vienna with a meeting with the officials down there, so I couldn't stay in Bonn any longer. And on Monday morning when I get back and I call the Chancellor's office, they said, where are you? We're sending the police. We haven't gotten a single letter here. And so I ended up having to hide out for a day. The next day here, I had a meeting with the communications head for the German government. And it was all over the news here that if you can imagine what a pile of 106,000 letters, physical letters, looks like. And we managed to shut down the government. It was all over the news there. So imagine here now, 14 million children were to send a communications to the Secretary General on the same date, what that would do. And this is the way, we actually had a plan for something with the former mayor of New York, Bloomberg, where we were looking to get about 20,000 young people to send a letter to him via Good Morning America, one of the top TV shows in America, and all have that. Can you imagine here if 20,000 letters to the mayor of New York via that news outlet showed up there, what the news would be talking about the next morning? What are all these letters about? What's all this? That would be all over the news, this big mystery. Look at this huge pile of mail. What is this all about? And can you imagine that Mayor Bloomberg would not be responding to that? Right? turns out that we couldn't get it organized before he was out of office, but it's that kind of mentality here. We've done this with journalists here, with our young people. It only took a couple of hundred, and this journalist is knocking on our door wanting to find out more about it. So we can think in these kinds of ideas. I'm thrilled today because so many of you have presented so many ideas. We now have to package these and put them so that we've got that roadmap of the individual actions that we want to do here over the next literally 8 weeks.
So sorry, I have to go at the almost 3 o'clock in the morning, but the last message, important message from us on behalf of Music for SDG. So one of the most important challenges that we are facing is how to compensate artists. So it should not be forgotten. So this is very, very important. We are working with the professional artists who might potentially contribute to this. And then if we continue to ask them provide the services for free of charge, it will not be sustainable. If you go to a restaurant and if you eat, you don't doubt whether you have to pay or not. You just pay automatically. But if you just ask artists to do jobs for you and then take it for granted that this will be for free of charge, that'll be discrimination. And we believe strongly that that will be against SDGs. It's against the sustainable development. So this is very important aspect. If we contribute to the sponsorship of any kind, we would like to keep at least 10% of the whole donation so that we can compensate those who are working together to make this happen. This is very important. And if you just give 100% of the donation to the children, no one would be willing to work with us, and at least it is not sustainable. They are already famous. They are already working with the United Nations. So they don't have to be promoting themselves through this project. So Mac, and then just ask them for free, that would be against SDGs.
I hear you, Mac, and I agree here that certain things definitely need to be paid for. And the 3 campaigns that I did that averaged each over 100,000 students from multiple countries, whether it was food, whether it was airlines tickets, whether it was this, all of that had to be paid for. But the way we handled that was we arranged, there was 2 scenarios. We arranged for sponsors that paid for this because they saw promotional opportunities for themselves in that. We know that many of these corporations, when they're making donations, yes, the idea they want to do something good is important, but the other thing is they recognize the value to their image to be able to do that. And we saw here, whether it was sending out to produce, we had to produce video, VCR videos at that time. I think we produced some like 45,000 of these, and we had zero problem finding people to donate for that, for hotel rooms, for every single thing we were able to do. And there was a huge value that when we went out there and said, we are not an organization, so don't give us any money. We don't even have a vehicle to accept money, but we have all these needs, and we do need people to be able to go and pick up these needs. I think here, I don't have, we can definitely talk about the ability to create some of these. We can even go here, once we get Rotary, where we've got enough of the clubs on board, that Rotary grants that we can go in, that there's $1 billion fund there, and there's for a Rotary grant, I think the minimum for a global grant is $30,000 for the grant, and it goes up to like $300,000. So I think here there can be opportunities to do that, but there's great value to be able to go out there and make the pitch to somebody here. Hey, look what we can do for you. It's like going to the Secretary General and saying, we want to help you with your goals. We're not asking you to help us with our goals. We're asking you to let us help you with your goals. And the more we can phrase things in that way, I think the more we've got people on board. And especially when we're talking about trying to create the opportunities for people to be heroes. We want to create the opportunities for companies to be heroes. We want to create the opportunities for philanthropies to be heroes, because so many philanthropies, they spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and they don't have anything to show for them afterwards. You know, they did some conferences, they put together programs, but if you go on the ground and try to measure, okay, what is the lasting result of that 5 years down the road or so, nobody can tell. Even the $100 million that Mark Zuckerberg went and gave to the city of Newark for their schools, nobody can see any value that came out of $100 million. So to the degree here, right now, somebody like a Mark Zuckerberg would love to have people talking about something he's doing for the good, rather than everybody talking about how bad Facebook is for everybody. You know, so I think we should start off with going out and saying we are the people of trying to create the opportunities. We picked up on 35 years ago, a president of Rotary said, Rotary is about creating extraordinary opportunities for people to do more with their lives than they ever dreamed possible. And if we can go out there and say to these philanthropies, to the corporation, to the civic leaders, to the UN, to UNESCO, we are about trying to create opportunities for you to do more of what you want to do than you ever thought you could. And maybe we start there, and we can definitely see how that could lead. But you know, there's the thing called the Charity Navigator or something like that goes out and takes all charities in the world and looks at what percentage of the money goes into the mouths of the children or whatever. And if you came out and said here that you're going to keep 10%, you would get a negative rating, which is basically a warning of everybody: don't invest in these people. They're too inefficient. Alex, you wanted to say something to that?
Well, just in terms of creating, you know, I mentioned the regenerative fund. There are ways to create these types of funds that will be able to sustain ongoing artist involvement and compensation. I really do believe that. Mac is absolutely right. You know, artists are often exploited because artists are sensitive people, and they are also very aware that through their voice or talents that they can rally an enormous amount of support. And so people come to them constantly with requests. I had one experience last night with a very, very famous A-list movie star. And I got him to do what I asked him to do, because I asked him to do something very simple, didn't require him to, you know, do much. But if there is going to be a performance where the artist has to train, practice, make sure that the performance is honed, and all of these things, that requires time where that artist could be making money doing something else. So I just wanted to solidify my support for artists. As an artist who is 23 years in a particular guild myself, I know the importance of the remuneration and the respect that has to come from various, you know, corporations or NGOs who are looking to leverage the artist's talent to showcase or spotlight their cause.
Perhaps we can create
this is a very, very important aspect. So we already receive a lot of criticism by not compensating the artist, because this is about the SDGs matter. You're exploiting the artist if you just ask them to do something for free. So it's against SDG.
Yeah, if it's an organization, I agree, but I think there could be created something like a Artists for a Better World, where that then could become a body that could go and say, hey, you know what, we're going to create a pool of funds that we can use to enable artists, to support
Yes.
artists that want to do something good in the world, that we can support them. And that could be an enabler to take some artists that are not yet rich and famous, to be able to go and say, you know, I know because you've got to go and work elsewhere to survive, and therefore it's hard for you to provide the time to go out and do these good things, so we can support you. I also do know, however, that from a number of visits that I made out to Hollywood and things like this, that the managers, forget about talking to the artists, their managers are constantly looking for opportunities to be able to go and get their artists that they manage out into the into the public view in a positive sense. Because I don't care how famous you've been, you know, artistry goes up and it goes down, and there's an awful lot of artists who are not as successful today as they were 3-4 years ago, that are looking for opportunities to get their name back in the forefront. So, you know, again, if we can be the ones creating the opportunities, and we can partner with agencies like a Artists for a Better World, like other groups there, who they see themselves as being able to create a fund to enable and support the artists in doing good for the world. That could be a model that could really work.
Sure. I'll just say that I have a very privileged situation in Monaco to create this type of fund. I'm happy to discuss it with any of you after, to you know, get much more detailed about how to approach that. But
Alexander, if I could just add to that something for you to think about.
Sure.
I believe if there was a fund that to go and support artists, to be able to support good things, that a lot of artists themselves would contribute to that fund. So it's almost like a union type of thing, if you would, that the artists, that the most successful artists are supporting their artist community to be able to do good things in the world.
Yes, I can certainly syndicate that, Bill, and happy to work on that. I've actually been in conversations with a few different entities about creating such a structure, as I said, in Monaco, because it's such a beacon for high net worth individuals and foundations and galas and etc. It's definitely a magnet for that.
Okay.
But I can actually report to you something very soon.
Okay.
When that structure is, you know, available to us to, you know, go out and leverage. I'm happy to set that up. I have a very good relationship there. So
I just noticed it's 2:07. So we've been at this for more than 2 hours. So I don't know here how much space is left on my computer for that my recording won't save properly. And so I suggest here, unless anybody's got something really, really important to add at this time, that we call this meeting to an end. Most of the folks have had to go on to other activities, but I do think here, rather than waiting for 2 weeks for our next meeting like this, that we see, I've seen Inger here, what she's out there doing 3 meetings a day on different things. And what we can do is these various ideas, we need to follow up on these. We need to get the videos going. We need to get these kids around the world going, both from the perspective of volunteering to be part of this global choir there. We need to put together the message content sequence. We need to get the 1-pager, the 4-pager, all these short versions. We need to get them cleaned up and modernized so they fit our new timetable. And we need to get out there to all the Rotary clubs. We need to start with the Lions clubs. We need to start getting a few corporate and philanthropist sponsors, Alexander, to just say, I support this idea, just the broad idea of trying to mobilize to get all the kids in the world and creating an opportunity for these kids to do something greater in their lives than they ever dreamed they'd be able to do. Because I'll tell you, the kids that we saw that participated in the pilot, that they could say, I changed the lives of 3 of the world's poorest children. We went around and said, how many adults can say they've ever done something like that? These kids 9 months later were walking on clouds still. So this is what we need to focus. So I will try over these next few days to get some materials out there so that we can build some groups that actually work on the different pieces of it, so that we can try to get the Secretary General on board. Maybe we can do something in COP26. Maybe we can do something on UN Day. We need to look at all the opportunities of what we can do, when we can approach him and get him the head of UNESCO.
And then I think there is something with the if it's 8 years from 2022 till 2030, that is, we get the children into that mission 8, like 8 years forward. So we have the long-term strategy.
Yeah, that's why we say Vision 2030, because the SDGs is a pile of work, hard to keep people excited about over a long term. But a vision of the world you want to create is something that stays valid until you've created it. So this is why we're trying to get people to think of the vision of what they want, the future they want. So at any rate, though, I know I have to leave at this point.
I have to leave.
So I thank you.
So
Good night.
Last question. So what are you going to do exactly on 24th of January? Are you planning to have any event, or how?
The 24th of January is the International Day of Education, the United Nations International Day of Education. Our push is to get the Secretary General to call a press conference and have the presidents of Rotary, the Director General of UNESCO, and some other people to be there. And it's our goal to define what it could look like. Go to that imagine aspect. This is where Paul Pullman, can we get him on board to say, imagine if the Secretary General did this? So now our goal is to make that imagine be conceivable to be real.
Sure.
And that will be
we can certainly
in New York.
It's up to the Secretary General. If we get him to agree to do it, wherever he does it, it's going to be great. Because then echo that video to the world.
Mac, you just mentioned earlier, Gloria.
Guys, I hate to say this, but
I know you have to abridge, Bill. But let me just close by saying this. Let's get Gloria also to get involved now, Matt. Because we can then start building the narrative within the newsletter. And then what that will allow me to do is to say, hey, we are developing a tremendous groundswell at the United Nations and through corporate. And then that will allow me to have the trickle effect with the philanthropists and say, now it's your turn to step up. And then, as I said again, we get all of the other aspects of what we discussed today, creating this regenerative fund for artists who do want to make an impact, create the fund which is dedicated to making sure the Readathon can continue by supplying books, the publishing.
We don't need
all
to.
of those
There's so
things,
many
music.
organizations providing the books and the reading materials. We just have to give them an opportunity here. Again, I think if you could focus on the time being here on how we can just get 100 celebrities, business leaders, whoever, to just make a video, 15-minute video segment saying, I like this idea. We could just have that put together, that all in the end of a video. That will be powerful.
A lot of celebrities have kids, some who don't, whatever, but they all believe that reading is essential. Reading is fundamental.
Get their kids to make
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Read to lead. Okay, thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank
Bye
you, Mark.
Bye, Matt.
Bye-bye.
Great seeing everyone.